Hey you guys, what's up? It's Ruby. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. Before jumping any further into today's video, be sure to go ahead and click that subscribe button. We are trying to reach 6K by the end of March. That is the next goal for this channel. So if you like what you see, I post new videos 3 times a week. There's always new content to binge. So today we have a part 2 to a video that I made quite a few months ago while I was still quarantining in Nashville. I got so many people asking me to make a part 2. So today it is finally here. We are going to be going through part 2 of my craziest customer experiences while working in retail. Quick little backstory on me if you're new to my channel. Hi, my name's Ruby. I work for myself full-time. I run my own online business and I also do social media, but before that, I was working a typical 9 to 5 and I've had a lot of retail jobs. I was a stylist at Barney's, I worked at J. Crew and Madewell, I was a stylist at Stuart Weitzman, I worked at Elf Cosmetics. That was my first makeup slash fashion job here in the city, and I've definitely accumulated quite a few stories from my time in retail. So today we're just gonna dive into even more. I'll be sure to go ahead and link part 1 down in the description box below, but let's just get into these stories because I promise you guys they're just as crazy as the first video, if not even wilder. I would like to call this first story the customer experience that truly would not end. So this is while I was working at Barney's. It was a day that I didn't have any client appointments, so I was just kind of wandering around on the floor helping anybody who needed it. And right at the beginning of my shift, right around 10 a.m., as soon as the doors open, this older lady came up onto my floor and asked if I could help her find a dress for an event. She seemed really sweet, probably in late 70s, early 80s, and I was like, sure, yeah, I can help you, I don't have anything going on. Boy, was that the biggest mistake of my life. So I start pulling dresses for her, I'm putting things into a dressing room, and then one of my coworkers comes up to me and he's like, are you the one helping that lady? And I was like, yeah, why, what's going on? Because he seemed super concerned. And he was like, we all know her and we all purposefully stay away from her because once she gets attached to a sales associate, she will not leave. Oh, and also she doesn't buy anything, she just likes to waste people's time. I just started shaking my head because of course this would only happen to me. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go into this with an open mind. Maybe he's thinking of a different lady. Maybe she does really need a dress for an event. Maybe she thinks she doesn't need a dress, but I can be so convincing that I'm the one who actually gets her to walk out of here with an item purchased. Again, biggest mistake of my life. So I bring in some dresses for her to try on. She takes literally forever. She comes out in every dress, wants to talk to me about the dress for at least 20 minutes. And she's like, you know what, I don't really think I need a dress anymore. I think I want to look for some tops. That turns into a whole nother ordeal. At this point, I'm getting close to my lunch break and I was like, you know what, I just don't think that this is gonna be your day. You know, trying to be very careful with my verbiage, but I was like, I think you might want to come back another time where you have a better idea of what you're looking for and then I can curate an appointment for you. She tried to keep me there, just kind of talking about nothing related to the appointment, and I think that happens often with personal stylists and people in retail is customers think that you're also kind of their therapist, which is not the case. So I knew it was my time to check out, so I just kind of awkwardly snuck away. I come back from my lunch break and she is sitting in the same dressing room waiting for me. And so I was like, hi, I thought, we were gonna take a breather and you come back another time. And she was like, oh, I just wanted to wait for you. Wait for me for what? I was literally at this point, I was just like, oh my god, can this day end? So basically at that point, all my other coworkers who had been at the store for longer than me were like, Ruby, honestly, you just kind of need to ignore her, for lack of a better word. That sounds so terrible, but basically they were like, just go and help other people, and this isn't really an appointment, it's not gonna go anywhere. I'm on the floor helping other people. I'm at least 4 or 5 hours into my shift at this point. This older woman continues to just follow me around the floor, and she tries to ask me random questions while I'm helping other customers. She's trying to give her input to other customers. It was I had a shadow all day. I would pop into the stock room to get something for a client. I would come out and she'd be right there oh good, you're back, I thought you left. Long story short, this woman literally stayed on my floor trying to talk to me and shadow me for my full 8-hour shift. And then of course it gets better. So at Barney's there was a specific employee entrance and exit. You had to go through security, they had to take your bag, and then you left through a separate door. So I get my bag checked, I'm ready to go home because it was just so mentally exhausting to have to deal with this customer following me around for 8 hours for no apparent reason. I exit out of the employee exit and she is standing right outside the door. And she was like, oh, good you're here. Like, I just wanted to say goodnight and talk some more. And so at that point, I did something that I don't know if I should have. But at the time, it seemed like the only way I could get out of this, like, truly wacky situation. And I literally said, oh, I'm not Ruby. You actually just missed her. She left about 10 minutes ago. And I literally just turned around and walked as fast as I could in the direction of my home. And I'm not even kidding you, the next day when I came into work, I was so worried that she was gonna come back and I was gonna have to repeat that whole day and like maybe call security and get my manager involved. Luckily, I never saw her again, but it was a really strange situation. Okay, so I have one other story from when I was working at Barney's, and it all started because I saw a woman in the corner of the floor that I was working on looking at 2 denim jackets. So both denim jackets were from the same brand, same designer. They were literally the same jacket. The only difference was one was a medium wash blue on a scale from like 1 to 10, 10 being the darkest. Let's say it was a 5. And then the other jacket was just a slightly lighter blue. So on the scale from 1 to 10, let's say it was a 4.75. Honestly, I don't even know why the designer made this jacket in these 2 colors, because they were so similar to like a regular person's eye that to me I thought it was kind of pointless. But okay, I see her holding up these 2 jackets. So I go over to her, I start making conversation. She starts asking me which one she likes better, and I gave her my honest opinion, which was, honestly, the color is so similar, you could go with either one and it would serve the exact same purpose. So she says, great, I'll take this one. And the one that she took was the one that was, again, on a scale from like 1 to 10, a 5. The whole interaction took about like 5 or 6 minutes, and so I thought, okay, great, that was an easy sale, like great way to start off my day. About an hour before my shift was over, the woman comes back and she was like, hey, I actually decided like I'm gonna do the other color variation. No worries, easy return, happens all the time. I wish that that was the end, but if it was, this story wouldn't be in this video. The next day, she comes back about halfway through my shift. Hey, I was wondering if we could do another exchange. Okay, sure, like for an entirely different item. No, for the other color, like I decided I wanted to go back to it. Okay, no worries, thought that was it. I kid you not, this continued to go on for 7 days. So for the next literal week, this woman would come back twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day, to exchange, ask customers what they thought, ask at least 10 of my coworkers which one they thought was better, to which they all said the same thing, which was, the colors are so similar, it literally doesn't matter. And then of course, when I looked at her customer profile history, I noticed that she did the same thing with literally everything she bought from the store. She would like return and exchange at least like 15 times. I don't really know how that was legal, but my manager said I had to comply, and so I was like, okay. Even after I came back from having a day off, one of my coworkers was like, hey, your customer came back and she did a return and exchange for one blue jacket for the other blue jacket, and I literally just wanted to like bang my head against the wall. Finally, on like the 8th day, she comes back with nothing in her hands, and so I was like, okay, what's going on? And she was like, I just wanted to let you know, these past few days I've just been riddled with anxiety because I didn't know what color to choose. And I was like, oh, that's okay, glad I could help. Did you end up keeping, one of them? And she's like, well, yes, I ended up going back to the original one that I bought. But then, I just got so anxious that I was making the wrong decision, so I just threw the jacket away. The jacket was like $700, so I couldn't believe that she just threw it away, but then like that was the end of that, and again, I never saw her again. Okay, so these next 2 stories are from my time working at Stuart Weitzman. And this first one isn't so much something that happened to me. I was somewhat involved in it, but it primarily involves my manager, or my manager at the time. But he's now like a super great friend of mine, so I feel like he won't mind if I like mention this story. Just know, if you're watching this, Drew, I love you, and the story makes me laugh so hard that like I had to include it. Okay, so basically, for those who don't know, Stuart Weitzman is a luxury shoe brand. They have standalone stores, but they also have like certain shoes and certain collections that they sell at like department stores or, like third-party sites. And I feel like this should go without saying, but apparently the customer in this story did not understand that when you buy something, you need to return it from where you got it from. So basically, one day, me and one of my coworkers are like at the front of the store, my manager Drew is at the register, and this customer comes barging in. Like, on the emotional scale, she is at a 100% even before she has said anything. She has a pair of shoes in like a plastic bag, and she like throws them down at me and my coworker, and she's like, I need to return these, they're Stuart Weitzman, I bought them from Zappos and I'm not happy. And we were like, okay, we're really sorry to hear that. Hopefully Zappos can help you. And she was like, what do you mean they're your shoes? And we tried to explain to her, well, you didn't buy them here, so there's literally no way we can accept them or take them back. It would basically be like me saying, hey, I bought this MAC lipstick and I hate it, so I'm gonna try and return it at Whole Foods. Like, it just doesn't match up. So we try and explain this to her. She starts yelling again. Like, she barged in at a 100 even before she said anything to us. She was just so rude. And basically, like, the rule of thumb for retail is if you come in and you ask for something in a nice and polite manner, we are going to do everything in our power to try and help you, unless like we literally just can't do it. And not like we could have done anything for this situation, but if she would have asked nicer, we probably would have helped her, like call Zappos or something, or, you know, give her a contact for corporate at the company. But she was just so terrible from the get-go. So then my manager hears all of this. He comes over, he asks what the problem is, and like, my manager Drew is one of the nicest people on the planet, so bubbly, so kind. It is literally impossible to be rude to this man, and yet this customer was. So she starts like screaming at him, you know, he's trying to make sense of it all. He says the exact same thing that I did, which is like, we can't take these back because you didn't buy them from us. Like, you bought them from a completely different website, and like, you know, their register system has nothing to do with ours. This portion of the conversation maybe only lasted like 30 seconds or so because this woman was yelling so loud she couldn't hear anything but her own thoughts. And so the conversation, I use quotation marks because it wasn't a conversation, it was just one person yelling. The conversation ended with this woman stomping her feet and like storming out of the store, literally like a toddler. She looks over at my manager before she like exits and she goes, "You're the manager, what's your name?" And he goes, "My name's Drew." And she just goes, "Drew? F you, Drew." She didn't say F, she said the full word, but we gotta keep it somewhat PG on this channel, you know, I'm still trying to keep my monetization status. She literally curses out my manager for something that was completely out of his control, storms off, heels clomping, and we just all look at each other afterwards like, what happened? This last story is the first and only time that I ever witnessed somebody cry over a pair of shoes. Oh, the joys of retail, but it gives me some good content. So this was still while I was working at Stuart Weitzman, obviously. Also, sorry for continuously like moving my hair. It's just so fresh and clean that it's like really floppy. But anyways, this was still while I was at Stuart Weitzman, and I helped this customer one day purchase a pair of thigh-high black suede boots in a size 6. I remember the story because it makes me laugh so hard. So the next day she comes back and she was like, "Hi, I was wondering if I could return these boots and exchange them for the exact same boot." And I was like, "Oh, did you realize that you wanted a different size?" And she was like, "No, I want the same boot in the same size, in the same color. I just don't want these." And so I asked her, I said, "Is there something wrong with them?" She's like, "I don't know, like they just don't feel right." And I was like, okay, don't know what that means. But I went to the back and we had another pair of like the exact same shoe. So she took those home and I was like, all right, hopefully that's the end of that. But of course it wouldn't be the end. So like 3 days later she comes back asking for the same thing again. And so basically we told her like, we will do this one more time for you, but this is it. This is final exchange, like no return, nothing else after this. Because there was clearly nothing wrong with the last 2 pairs that we sold her. Then like 4 days later we get a call from another one of the Stuart Weitzman locations in the city saying, "Hey, we have a client here who's trying to exchange a pair of boots for the exact same pair, but we see on her receipt that it says final sale, no returns, no exchanges." And we were like, oh boy, this is our girl. So over the phone we were like, yeah, nope, nothing you can do. She needs to keep the boots, and she had an understanding that like that was it. Later in the day this customer comes back to our store and she's like, "I don't understand why I can't do it again." And we were like, well, it's because you're not exchanging something that was like defective, you're not exchanging it for a different style, you're literally just continually trying to exchange a boot for the exact same boot 4 different times. And like that waves a red flag to us, so we just have to kind of like cut it off and say like, that's it. She starts getting very, very upset. I have another client appointment that I'm supposed to be dealing with, so I hand her off to one of the like key holder assistant managers, and I'm gonna try and paint this picture for you. I don't know if it's just funnier in my mind, but like it was very funny in the moment. As I'm going in and out of the stockroom grabbing shoes for my other client, I'm able to still watch the conversation between the key holder and this other client. So the first time I come out of the stockroom, I see them and the customer is like arguing to this key holder. The second time I come out of the stockroom, I see the customer sobbing and my coworker, my friend, the key holder, just like patting her on the shoulder, giving her like pity pats. And the third time I come out of the stockroom, I see them embraced in a hug. Literally, I have no idea how we got from A to B. So after I had wrapped up with my other client and the original customer had left with like the shoes in hand, I went over to my coworker and I was like, what the hell happened? Why was she crying? Like, why was there someone crying on the shoe floor? And she basically said that like the customer just started crying out of nowhere, which is like, I just love these shoes and like they just have to be perfect. And so my coworker was like, it's okay, like it's only shoes, like we need to just calm down. And so like, I don't know, I guess that kind of broke the ice and the customer started laughing because she realized how ridiculous the whole situation was. And so she was like, thank you so much, like I feel like you're my friend now, which led to them being embraced in a hug. I don't know, just the image of like 1 second you see this person crying and then the next you turn around and they're like in an embrace and you're like, how did that happen? Truly was so funny. I will never forget it, and literally to this day, I always make fun of my coworker. I'm like, hey, do you remember when you made that customer cry? Obviously she did not make that customer cry, but the whole situation was so outrageous and funny to me that like it broke me anytime I started to think about it. And those, you guys, are my stories. I really hope that you all enjoyed today's video. I hope it gave you some laughs. I know that it's a little bit different than my typical content, but you guys have been wanting a part 2 to this for so long, and I just didn't want to leave you hanging anymore. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up and also click that subscribe button. We are trying to reach 6K by the end of March. That is the next goal here for this channel. Follow me on all of my other social media networks, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Clubhouse if you're a member. Subscribe to my podcast. Check out my Amazon shop. I love you all so much. I hope that you guys are staying safe, happy, and healthy, and I will talk to you all in my next video. Bye.